All right, everybody, welcome to Irish Sports Daily's Hit and Hustle. We are here. It is me, Greg Flammang, your host, as always, with Jamie Uyeyama. Jamie, Stanford week, big time Stanford team coming in here. We got a big time night game, right?
It's a night game.
Under the lights. It's going to be lit. Stanford's not very good, Jamie.
No,
So
they're not.
we're going to get into Stanford. We're going to get into what's happened with them in the last, I don't know, man, like 4 or 5 years. It's just been like they in 2018 they were overrated, but not terrible. And ever since then, it's been a pretty big drop. So we're going to talk about that. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Who's live right now? We got still people shuffling in, as is usually the case. And if you're catching this on the replay, thank you very much. Don't forget, if you like what you see here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That always helps grow the channel. And before we get going, Jamie's got his 6 thoughts on a Thursday coming out, which is always a very popular piece amongst the fans and everybody. So you're going to want to check that out. So Jamie, why don't we first? It's been a popular kind of topic. David Shaw was asked about the 2012 game for some reason. I don't know who asked him about it. And so it's one of those things. Like, I didn't think we would speak on it.
Can you talk a little bit more about this game that happened 10 years ago?
if
not about your 1-4 start and the fact that you haven't beaten an FBS team this year. This is what I want to know. What moron did this? I don't care if this is an ND beat writer who wrote this, or I'm assuming it's a Stanford, whatever, local guy. But like, you're a moron. Why would you ask that question? Get out.
Someone, it's one of those, like, please, like David Shaw's like, hey, could you please ask me about this? Because
he's been waiting. He's been waiting. People bring it up to him.
People are seeking him
just
out.
randomly. Hey, Coach Shaw, can I just talk to you for a second? I just want to let you know that Stephon Taylor on that first down, I think he got in. I was in the truck and I saw it, that team. I just had to seek you out and let you know. Yeah, right. What is this crap?
All right, so
get over this, you bitter loser.
Jamie's on fire. All right, so let me let's go over the quote. All right, so I'll bring it up here. So I guess I need to blow this up a little bit. All right, so here's the quote from Mr. David Shaw. Quickly. All right. If Stephon Taylor actually scored a touchdown against the Irish in overtime in 2012. The first time, absolutely. The rules have changed since then. There is more of a mandate to review everything goal line play. He was in, I believe it was first down. It was actually second down. That's what he's referring to. He was in on first down. It did not get reviewed. The other rule change is crews working together. That was a mixed crew. The people in the box were used to working with the people on the field. There was a lack of communication there. So let's talk about how so he's saying it wasn't reviewed because they don't review everything goal line, he's saying, which doesn't make any sense, right? Every play is reviewed, okay? It doesn't matter if it's the goal line or if it's the 50-yard line. Every play is reviewed. So for a catch or a fumble or anything, right? Out of bounds, steps out of bounds, they're all reviewed. So the goal line thing, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, doesn't make any sense. The statute of limitations have passed where I feel like I can speak freely about this. I feel like I've had multiple conversations with multiple people over the years. Some people I haven't sought out. They sought me out, including some of the guys who were working in the truck, working in the van during that look at those. They insisted. I didn't even push. They insisted that Stephon was in. Okay.
Hey, Coach Weiss, I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know that it was illegal for them to push Reggie Bush to push Matt Leinart in. Did you know the rule? Because that was against the rules. They weren't allowed to do that.
They weren't allowed to.
I just wanted to reach out and let you know that I saw it, and I was in the truck that day. and it was wrong.
I was in the truck. The
wrong.
people in the truck. It's so good. So listen, being as it is, we are in the year of our Lord, 2022. These things are on the internet, right? So, of course, what am I going to do? I'm going to go check. Here we go, Jamie. We've got knee down right here. Knee down, ball, short. Here's the line. Okay. Now, look, you might say, well, it's hard to see, right? Maybe the ball is across at that point. Okay. So, but here's the other thing. So on the replay, Taylor keeps going forward, right? Keeps lunging forward. And so when you see the ball hit the ground on the line, it stands to reason that at that point, when the knee went down, he's not in the end zone, right? Pretty clear, not that complicated. So, it's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. And I got to say, to Mitchell's comment here, the people are saying tactic. It's so good. I think
streets are talking.
I think streets are talking. It's just many people are saying this. Many people are saying, and I think people are kind of missing the fact that David Shaw, pretty clearly is like kind of making this up, right? Like he's like who in the truck is coming up to him afterwards, like years later. Like nobody is doing that. It's this made up story. It's also fantastic.
Just like, is he doing an oral history on the game?
Yeah,
like,
we're doing
what is going on here?
Can we confirm that Adam Rittenberg was not in this?
We can't confirm. There's no way I will. You know what? I mean, I'll give Adam Rittenberg a break. I do not believe it was him who asked this question. If it was him, then all bets are off. But you know what, I don't think it was him.
What I would say is, remember when the Cal thing, and then Rittenberg, what was it? Like a week after.
It was way later.
It was something happened. He was like that. There's this is adds to the list of coaches. I gotta say, I think David Shaw's on that list. I think that's David Shaw's on the list of coaches who feel
David Shaw and Pat Narduzzi. What? These guys that everyone loves? What? These totally reasonable guys who don't point fingers and blame other people when they lose? What? I can't believe it. Would never expect those guys to ever do that.
I would say, of the two coaches for 2012 gripes, wait, was Narduzzi the coach in 2012?
No, he was a Pitt in 2012.
No, because that was Christ.
It was Paul Christ.
So he doesn't even have a gripe. I was going to say
he has stuff when he was on Michigan State. He just because the 2013 game, and there were all the PI calls. I'm sorry, they were PI. They were PI every time. And they just didn't call them every game when they're. I mean, that was what Michigan State was known for. They mugged the receivers all the time. And in the games that they didn't call it, they dominated because they could. I mean, you could get away with PI. And in the games they did call it, they struggled. So they just didn't call it in a lot of that year, right? I mean, why do you think Darqueze Dennard didn't do anything in the NFL? It's well, it turns out you can't mug guys like you can in
really can't in the NFL. Yeah. All right. So, well, that was fun. I think laughing about David.
We needed to get that off our chest.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. So, all right, let's talk about the game on Saturday. Notre Dame comes in 3-2. They've won 3 straight against the now ranked North Carolina. Oh no, wait. North Carolina is not. They were in the coaches poll. That's right. That North Carolina was ranked in the coaches poll. 5-1 North Carolina and 4-2 BYU. Notre Dame nearly eclipsing 500 yards of offense against BYU. They had 496. How many kneel downs did they have? I wonder if they had 500 kneel downs.
I think they had either 490. I think it ended up being 499, and then they took away 3 on the kneel downs.
Oh, the kneel downs. Okay. Yeah. And then they had 576 against North Carolina. So the offense is certainly humming there. And they're going to play Stanford, who is 1-4, who lost an absolute heartbreaker to Oregon State last Saturday. Loss. It was not a good loss. Not a good loss. Mike Frank was texting us. He didn't like how it was going. He wanted a depleted and disgruntled Stanford coming in. Looked like they were going to win. And I think the way they lost is he's going to get his wish. I think they should feel depleted and disgruntled. They've lost 2 starting offensive linemen on the left side. from a unit that already wasn't very good. So that's not going to be good news for them. So Jamie, you've dug into Stanford quite a bit. Let's start Notre Dame's offense against Stanford's defense. What do we expect? How do they compare to I guess some of the units they've played since Drew Pine became the starter, right? So Cal, let's say rate the defenses, right? Cal, North Carolina, BYU, Stanford.
It's worse than North Carolina, so that should give everyone an indication of where Stanford is. Like, I mean, they're in the same bad, like horrible tier. Yeah. Is what I would put it. Yeah. You know, maybe not in terms of just the straight up busts, but physically, they just don't got it. Like, where if you look at it over the years, you know, the Harbaugh era, Shaw era, they put a lot of guys in the league, right? You know, front seven DBs all over the place, right? Like a lot of guys have played in the league, and they just don't got a lot of NFL players anymore. That's the thing. They don't have the linebackers are slow. Both the edge guys are undersized. They're both under 240. I think David Bailey's a true freshman, and he's their best pass rusher. But the fact that a true freshman is their best pass rusher, that's not a great sign. He's a starter for them. That's also not a great sign when you have an edge guy there who he's good, but I don't think he'd be a rotation guy for Notre Dame, right? Like he wouldn't play above Justin Admilola. So, and I think they don't have any dudes up front. They don't have any Solomon Thomas, Harrison Phillips, and then in the secondary, they don't have like Kai Blue Kelly's a good corner, but he hasn't been great this year, and he's struggled a bit. And they kind of have their way with them, right? They just don't have enough kind of quality guys. They're not fast enough. Like Ethan Bonner, who played in the Oregon State game, and I mean, they went at him. They he gave up 4 for 101, and he could have gave up like 160. Like he struggled in that game. They're, 126 in yards per carry, 129th in EPA per rush, 130th in opportunity, 130th in stuff rate. So up front, they're not good.
Yeah,
they're not good. And then they don't get after the passer very well, and they're 114 in EPA per pass and 109th in yards per attempt against versus the FBS. So you take out the Colgate game, and they're one of the worst passing offense in terms of giving up yards per attempt. So, I mean, they're just not good all around. Like, I think like schematically they have like holes in their defense too, where you just see like teams like scheme up like easy big plays against them. So that's not good. They're very vanilla, which is like kind of the opposite of what they should be based on the talent level. I mean, they got to do a full reboot on their thing. I mean, they don't have enough talent there, but I don't think they're helped out by the scheme at all. And I just think they're just bad on defense. And I mean, I don't see them really stopping anybody really that much, right? Like, I think if you look at Oregon State had their backup quarterback and lost and won that game. I think if they would have had their starter, they easily would have scored 30. And then you look at the 3 other games before that, Pac-12 games before that, they gave up 40 in each game. And I think very likely Notre Dame scores 40 in this game. Yeah.
So post Colgate, they've given up 8 yards of play to USC, 6.9 to Washington, 7.2, or I guess 7.3 to Oregon, and 6.5 to Oregon State. And as you said, against their backup quarterback, Oregon ran for 351 yards against them. And in the other games like USC, Washington, they ran for 164, 169. But in those games, they were throwing for 341. And
yeah. They could have ran for
So it's like
300 if they wanted.
We're just getting our yards another kind of way. Let's see. Let me look at this. We'll not have call plays in quite a while. Oh, okay. Rajan's coming in from just last stream. So, Jamie, you made a good point. Good job by you. we appreciate people saying that Jamie made good points because he often makes good points. So it's interesting. So you're talking about the Stanford giving up big plays and that sort of thing, and I think that it's kind of a good time to play a team like that because so one thing about the BYU game that we kind of take for granted in hindsight that I think could present problems for Notre Dame in the future is Notre Dame was 11 of 16 on third down. And a lot of that was Drew Pine throwing the ball, right? And so I don't know how sustainable it is for Notre Dame for Drew Pine to be like a 78% passer and be converting third downs over and over again.
Oh yeah, like that. Like they were unbelievable against BYU.
Right. Like it's a super easy formula. Like it's a very predictable formula to just like, oh, how does Notre Dame like get upset or how does their offense bog down? It's like, well, you get in the 3rd and 4 and Drew Pine's not sharp or, for some reason, like, oh, he's not making the right reads or something like that. Like, so my point is if that's the case, then you need to be able to create big plays and chunk plays. And that's where Notre Dame, like they haven't really done that so far this year. They have 14 plays of 30 plus yards, which is, I think, 68th overall in the nation. And so I think they're going to have to get better there, because that's something that any good offense needs to be explosive at a much higher rate than Notre Dame is right now. And so if you're going to play a team that's going to create explosives and that sort of thing, I think it's a good time to do that against a team that's been doing that. Who, I guess, in this game, given the way Stanford plays defense and what you see there, like where do you see the explosives coming from on the Notre Dame offense? Like, is this a game for Braden Lenzy finally to break loose, or is it a game for Lorenzo Styles or maybe even a Tobias Merriweather to get a play, get on the board as far as catches and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would think the receivers in general. I think this is a game if you're looking for guys to have a breakout. Or even if it's just like a breakout play, whether that's like Merriweather or Lenzy, for those two, this is the game for that. Like they can attack them vertically. And so I think that, those would be two guys to watch. I mean, obviously, Styles and Thomas too, I think, but I think it just in general, and I think what they're going to do is probably be like, don't let Michael Mayer beat us.
Right.
And I think that's gonna ultimately, hurt them, and then Notre Dame's gonna have to go away from that, and that's where you're gonna struggle. But I also think I think this is a game where you could see like Chris Tyree hasn't really broke one this year. This is a game where I could see him breaking one. This is a game where you could see like, oh, he went for 60 on something like that. Like, I think that can happen. I just think they're too many times too. They're just too slow. Like all around where you're just like, oh, they have poor run foots, but it's because they're not athletic enough to get there. And man, I don't know. Like just watching Stanford, it's like it's painful to watch. I just don't. I think they're terrible.
Well, they've certainly played terrible. It's
on defense. I'll say they're more respectable on offense.
Right. Well, I'm the quarterback, and we'll get to that in a bit. So I guess, all right. So, so you said Stanford is the type of team that you can scheme get big plays against, and that's going to be a problem because, like Tommy Rees, I think that's something he's very good at. I think he's very good at scheming, finding a weakness and scheming that weakness to explosives. Right. I think we've seen him do that before. I think we saw him do it against North Carolina. Right, where he's got people running free all over the place. And if Stanford's going to be the type of defense that North Carolina is, you saw what a coach like Tommy Rees can do against that front. And when what did you say they were against in stuff rate? They were 100 and something.
130th
out of 131.
Yeah, out of 130. Out of 131. Yeah.
So that's bad.
That's bad.
That's not good. That's not good. And that's this is a quote from a comment from David Solomon. Is that true?
I don't know how much I've heard that, but I don't, because it's a private university. They don't
Yeah. They
disclose
don't.
it.
Yeah.
And I've never seen like, Bruce Feldman or one of those, newsbreaker type guys say David
Yeah.
Shaw signed a $9.5 million. I have heard he makes a ton of money. Like he's probably the highest paid coach in the Pac-12, if not maybe Lincoln Riley now. So,
Yeah.
And I have no idea like the length of his contract. But I mean, he did earn it over the course of time. It's just like, I mean, he really they're 12-23 in their last 35 games, right? They've been bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if that happened at Notre Dame, he would have been fired like easily. Like, no matter what he did before, he would have been fired like 10 games ago, at least.
Yeah, I think the way 18 ended, that would have put him on notice for 19, and then in 19 they were 4-8. So he probably would have. That probably would have been the end for a Notre Dame coach there. But when I was talking about the stuff rate. If you're 131st or 130th out of 130 out of 131, that just kind of goes to show you're soft in the middle. Like I thought BYU was soft up front, right? And first of all, Notre Dame had success running the ball against them. So you go against someone like Stanford, who, I mean, you can't be any softer than that, right? And so it's just like Notre Dame is a kind of team that Stanford should not want to see right now, because they just want to run. They run straight ahead, right? A lot of their runs are just power right up front. They even ran ISO one time at the goal line last week. That was kind of fun to watch. Uphill climb for Stanford on that front. Let's talk about their offense, where I think they can give Notre Dame's defense a little bit of trouble, which that we've kind of seen over especially in 19, right? Like I think they were up, what was it? 17-7, I think, at one point in that game.
Yeah.
So they gave Notre Dame trouble in that one as well. Offensively, they did some stuff. And I think Tanner McKee is very similar to Davis Mills, who was the quarterback in 2019. So his QBR this year isn't very good. It was, I believe it was in the 80s, 83rd, something like that. So tell me about the offense. I know they've lost against the offensive linemen, and their top running back is out for the year as well. So what do they have there?
What they have is Tanner McKee's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
He's a product of his kind of underwhelming numbers. I think has everything to do with their offensive line. And you could see, like, in the Oregon State game, when he has time, like, the guy is as impressive as anyone in terms of, like, arm talent and accuracy. And I mean, he's a good player. He's a very good player. And I like their receivers too. And I thought, like, last year, some of those guys kind of underachieved a bit. And I mean, part of it is because they had to kind of protect McKee with what they were doing, but they've kind of taken more chances this year. Like Michael Wilson has had a very good year. He's a big kid. He's like 6'2", 209. Elijah Higgins is huge. He's like 6'3", 230. Yeah. And that Tremaine kid is like another big guy. And he's like really good ball skills. Like, he reminds me a lot of JJ Arcega-Whiteside in a lot of ways, right? Maybe not as much of a vertical threat, but in terms of like winning back shoulder and stuff, like he's got that same kind of like body control. And so they have that. And then and EJ Smith, before he got hurt, was a good back, right? Like he was pretty good. And Filkins is fine. He's just fine, but he's not a dynamic guy. And Benjamin Yurcik, who's the guy who had a really good game against Notre Dame, he took a reverse 50 yards this year. Like, he's a good athlete. Like, skill talent wise, they've done a pretty good job recruiting, and like they have good talent there. And I think that the problem is their offensive line has been horrible. Like, and even when they're healthy, they haven't been good, and they're really banged up, right? So they got two starters that are out for this game. They got one starter that was supposed to start at the beginning of the season, Branson Bragan. He's medically retired. the guy who was supposed to be the next tackle in for Walter Rouse, the left tackle that's out, that guy's hurt. So they're getting Miles Hinton back, but he was garbage at the beginning of the year. He hasn't been good. Mm. And if anybody watched a USC game, like he got ragdolled a couple times bad. Like, and he was a very, like, I was very high on him. I thought he was going to be like a, no doubt, like first rounder type dude. And he just hasn't been that. And they haven't developed guys in the line. I think they've really missed, like kind of how they missed Randy Hart on the defensive line after he retired. Mike Bloomgren, who went to coach Rice, he's been gone since 2017 was his last year. So I don't think it's a coincidence that like they started to decline after that up front when he left, and they just have never really replaced them and never really recruited and developed the guys there. And so they've just been bad up front. They just aren't, they're 123rd sack rate, 117th in sacks allowed per game, 89th in opportunity, 119th in stuff rate, right? Like they just, they don't move people off the ball like they used to. They can't play that heavy style where it's just like, well, we got so many good offensive linemen, we're going to put 7 out there and just block you, and there's nothing you can do. They can't do that anymore. They can't do that. And it's not even just injuries, right? Even if they were healthy, they couldn't do that anymore. So they've kind of had to change who they are, and they've used a lot of that. They use that Wake Forest slow mesh, and they've kind of introduced it. But it's like, when someone steals something from someone, it usually doesn't look like that other team right away. It takes some time. And so that's where they're kind of at with it. When they played in the Oregon game and the offensive line was really bad, like they had to get the ball out super quick. And that was why McKee didn't have a great game. So if they don't have the time to get the ball and thread and vertical with those big receivers, then it's going to be a problem. And the problem is if you do that enough, you're just going to get sacked. And, that's the thing where I think like Notre Dame's pass rush should probably dominate this game.
Would you say their receiving core is better than Cal?
I would, but I think it's pretty close. Like I think Cal's receiving core was pretty decent.
I agree. That's why I'm making that comparison.
Yeah, I would say they're pretty comparable. So you'll see some guys. These guys will make plays in the game. Like Notre Dame might win by like a wide margin, but they'll make some plays in the game. They'll have some things where they're well covered, and they'll just make a play, right? So, they have weapons, right? Like, and their defense or their offense is like middle of the pack, average. Like it's like they're 63rd in EPA per play, 85th in points per drive, right? 58 in OF plus, but only 5.47 yards against, the last 4 games, right? Against the FBS opponent.
So I guess, would you be playing Tariq Bracy in this game?
I mean, I guess they would have to know that he's 100%. Like, here we go. I wouldn't test them if not. Like, because they don't. This is the one thing too. They don't have this like dynamic slot that he's got to match up with. Where a lot of these other teams do have had it, so they don't have that. So like Henriksen said here, like those guys are good. Those guys are good players, different players, right? They're like faster guys. Sturdivant's a big guy too, but a little bit different, like a little bit skinnier, lankier than these guys. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a game where you could get away with. This is a Cam Hart game to me. Like you want to see Cam Hart and even Clarence Lewis to a certain extent. Like this is your big on big corners you want to see. And honestly too, it's a thing where you want to see like Benjamin Morrison. Like, yeah, they're going to throw it. You're going to have good coverage. Now you got to make a play, or that guy's going to make a play, right? So that's what it's going to happen.
Are they? So they don't really have that big slot. Do you see? I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, so do you see them like playing less slot in the game, right? So like people talk about the Bracy replacement. Do you see just like more? Because I don't remember them playing a ton of nickel against Stanford last year, and I think it's probably around the same, the same kind of formations and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Same
they
structure.
are. They definitely aren't like a 12 personnel team like they used to be. They are far more 11. It's just the guys that they play there. They will play Higgins as a slot. So it's
Yeah.
like a big slot. So this is a game too where you could say, well, maybe we want to have. I mean, I don't think it's a good matchup to have like Kaiser out at Rover against Higgins. I think that's a win for Stanford. But to a certain extent, I think you do kind of want to have more of that matchup. And this might be even something where you look at like a Ramon Henderson there to kind of see how he matches up there.
I was going to say, so I think this is a good conversation just to have generally. So how would you solve the Bracey, I guess, problem? I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, how would you solve that? Because I was thinking it may not be the worst thing ever to try Brandon Joseph in that spot, just because he's played a lot of slot before. He played slot at Northwestern, so he definitely has that in his bag. And Ramon Henderson's a good one. Obviously, he's played corner at Notre Dame, so he has that skill set. And then, what would you do with like against a smaller, like a team with an actual slot? Would you have that be like a Jaden Mickey role? Like, do you feel like he's?
Yeah, I think it would be Mickey. That's what
I kind of feel as though he should I think for the rest of this year, maybe that should just be his spot. Because if he needs
because he's going to have to be that guy next year.
Right. So yeah. I think that they should kind of exclusively rep him there, because he needs to get used to that. Because the other part too is the play that, the play that everyone's talking about when Al Golden said it was a bad call. It was a bad call in that they did put him in a bad spot. But like watching the play over again, like Mickey is a little lost. He definitely, because I thought the receiver gave him like more of a move to the outside. Like that was just my impression. I thought he gave him like a little shake and Mickey kind of jumped it, but that's not really what happened.
Like, that isn't what happened. Yeah, he was just anticipating something.
He ran a straight route, and so, but I think it's more of a like he's not used to playing inside. I don't remember him playing inside in high school. And if
he played more. I mean, I think he's physically. You think the skill set and like intelligence that he would be a guy there, but he was more of. I mean, he played outside.
Right. So if you're not used to it, it is a little weird. It's a disorienting to be kind of. They have a two-way go. They can go anywhere basically on the field. You can run a corner just as easily as you can run a post. Out routes, in routes, that sort of thing. So I think it would be smart for them to just say, you know what, like we need you to be the backup nickel against the smaller receivers, and then just kind of get him ready to go for the rest of the year. Because if Bracey's got a hamstring thing, that could be a problem for a number of weeks, right? We don't know how that's going to respond. Brought up this question from Nicholas Henriksen. Like, what do you think about Clarence Lewis going to the slot?
Well, I mean, he made a nice play in the slot in the BYU game, right? I mean, should have been a pick six in that. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought that would be like a potential transition for him. You worry about him like having to carry like that kind of vertical route that Mickey, blew the assignment on. I would worry about that. But a lot of the underneath stuff, and in terms of like his intelligence and stuff like that, I think that does make sense.
Okay, let's put this question up from Brendan. Being rude about post 2018 Stanford seems very in vogue, and all the people are doing it. When you look at the Stanford squad, what is the most egregious aspect of their team?
I mean, I just would say the defense in general. Like I'd say the run defense. I mean, we just said 130th. There's only one below. Like,
who's below them?
I gotta look it up.
What a brutal.
That's a bad beat. That's a bad beat,
man. First of all, if you're gonna be awful, be the worst. That's how I feel about it. If you're gonna be bad, be a disaster.
Yeah.
Because don't be like, You don't be like 100th, because then it's like, we're
I
bad.
know.
But
Then
we're
you're
not,
just bad, but we're not.
you
the
don't want
worst.
to.
Yeah.
You're not the worst bad. I think you want to be the worst bad whenever possible.
Army. Army is the worst.
That's tough. We respect the troops on the Hit and Hustle podcast.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not Colorado, Brennan. It is not. It is Army. You know what? That's not very troop respecting from David Shaw. You got to take the last spot. I think Notre Dame should drop him to the last spot.
I think Notre Dame needs to just
in reverence to the troops.
No negative yards against Stanford.
None.
Let's make sure. Let's get them to 131.
Let's get them to 131.
You can do it
in honor of America. Is really what it should. It's
respect the troops.
Respect the troops.
Get Stanford to dead last in stuff rate.
There it is, right there. Yeah. That's the mandate for that's the mandate for this week.
Marcus Freeman after this game. We had 2 goals for this game. 1, get out of here with a win against our rival. 2, get Stanford to dead last in stuff rate and get Army out of there. We respect our troops.
We respect our troops. We fly the flag.
Yeah.
Should Notre Dame wear green in this game, Jamie? Do you have an opinion about that?
Oh, no, I don't think they should.
Why not?
I'm all for them wearing green more.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think the idea that it's this jinx is like stupid. It's not really, if you look at what the thing is, people just remember like the Ty Willingham, Boston College, and they just, and that is stuck with them. But it really kind of since then, I'm pretty sure they've won most of the times that they've worn green.
Well, wearing green and a
lot of the Shamrock Series games for sure.
Wearing green now would actually normalize. It would take away people's idea of that. You don't wear it for like special occasion. You wear it as like just a normal, like, hey, we're wearing green this year. Like this year we're going to wear green.
I do like the idea of wearing it for all of their rivalry games.
Oh,
so like the home games,
Jamie. That's good.
But I even like the away games too. Like, because I think they should incorporate. That's one thing that's Oregon. You would give them. They've always had the like 5 jerseys in a year, and I think that's something that's attractive to recruits and stuff too. They like, they got all these different things. You get different swag for that game or whatever. Like, and I mean, Under Armour is the least they can do since they're not making good cleats. So like they could at least give them more swag for that kind of stuff. And I think like, so getting, you play Stanford, you play SC. I mean, you could throw Navy in there too, but just like, if you just did those games every year, I think that's pretty cool. And then if you wanted to like, you're breaking in a Michigan or something like that, throw it in there too. But I mean, I like it. I would like that idea.
All right, Jamie, we've got some news that is breaking. Let me bring it up here. We can talk about it. We were debating whether or not to bring it up on the pod, but we don't have to because Marcus Freeman just mentioned it. So Bo Bauer out for the season-ending injury. Do you know what the injury is?
I believe it's knee.
A knee injury? Okay. Yeah. So he's got a knee. Bo Bauer's got a knee. Obviously, it's a big loss for him. Notre Dame's losing a captain. You never want to lose a captain. You never want to lose Bo Bauer. I think one of the more popular players on the team amongst the team, and B, just with the fan base as well. I think his Q rating is really high. So let's talk about Bo Bauer being lost for the year, and then how you think Notre Dame is going to deal with it on the field.
I mean, it's not a huge loss for the defense. He's only played 71 plays this year. His role's been reduced. He's not a starter in sub packages anymore. And when Bertrand was out, I mean, he didn't get elevated to the starter. Like they played Kaiser at Mike, he ended up playing pretty well. Sorry, there was a fly in my face there. But I think, it's more of like, obviously he's a key special teams player, blocked a kick this year, right? and has always been a valuable special teams guy and just like an energy guy, a guy who always brings it. Like you saw even in that goal on the goal line in this past game, like he just comes and he brings 100% intensity. And I don't think, I think it's more of a loss, like an emotional loss, just knowing that like this is a guy like similar to Avery Davis that is kind of loved within the locker room, and then that happens, and that's terrible. I think in terms of what it means for the linebacker position, like I said, I don't think it has a huge impact. I know people would say, well, I think Junior Tuihalamaka will kind of move. I mean, he'll move up, one spot, but I think it's probably more likely that Prince Collie is the guy who gets the biggest bump from it, because I think what you're going to see is it'll be Kaiser and Bertrand at Mike, and most likely Leofau and Collie at Will. And now, I mean, Collie's got a big opportunity right now. Like I think, I mean, obviously they've said he was practicing well and he made a nice play against BYU. So, I mean, he can make a big move here in the next little bit. And I think if Kaiser keeps playing like that, I mean, who's to say that in a few weeks from now, it's not Kaiser and Cully starting, right? Like could easily happen. I think you just take one guy out of the mix. And then also too, like now it does just in practice too. It's one thing that you think about, like, so now Junior Tuihalamaka gets X amount more reps in practice, to prove whether or not that he can play. And now he'll get that chance. And so he'll have a chance now. So we'll see.
And it's again, it's a kind of a good time to, Notre Dame's gotten through, I guess, their gut check part of this season, right? Where you had North Carolina and you had BYU, and you knew those were going to be tough matchups for the team. And they like really needed it, like it was, the season was on the brink, very much in terms of just like, it can be a good season, not like obviously after the start, the playoff dreams were basically dashed, right? I mean, it would take a ton of craziness to run the table and get into the playoffs that way. So they probably didn't. It's like not even worth thinking about for the team. But they were looking at like a really bad season, and they rebounded, playing much better on offense, especially on both sides of the ball. So it's tough. It's tough to lose Bo Bauer, because, I mean, was he out of the rotation because of play, or because was he hurt already? That was something that I didn't understand.
I think it was partially due because he also had a bad shoulder, right?
Yeah.
So he was playing with, and if people remember when he blocked that kick, he kind of came off holding his shoulder, but that was already kind of a deal that he was going with. But obviously you saw, like, he didn't stop him from blocking that kick. So
yeah,
I think that probably had some to do with it. But I mean, I also think it's just, like Bertrand beat him out for that job at the beginning of the year. And that's kind of just how it went.
Tough for the captains in 2022. That's for sure. He also had a bit of an update on Tariq Bracy. He called him questionable still. To me, that means he's out.
That means he's not going to play.
Yeah, that's what it means, and he shouldn't play. Frankly, you don't want to mess around.
I just don't mess around with a hamstring,
right? And we look at Jackson Smith and Jigba, right, where he did something to his hamstring against Notre Dame. He hasn't played since then. They didn't think it was that big of a deal, and he even played in the rest of that game. Like, he played in that game still.
Yeah.
But if it's not right, it's not right. So you got to get it. You got to get it right, and especially for a player like him. If he doesn't have his speed and his burst, then he's very much diminished as a talent, right? Because he's not the biggest guy. So if he's not going to have the explosiveness or the quickness, it's not going to work out for him. All right, Jamie, let's I'm going to look for some more quotes from we can talk about that, but just give me kind of like the baseline. Like, what did you submit your prediction to Mike already?
I didn't yet, but I'm picking Notre Dame to win by more than 3 scores. So
more than 3.
more than 3 scores.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be a close. I don't think it's going to be a close game at all. I mean, I think it might be actually be close for like a half, and then it'll get ugly from there. Because I do think like Stanford is going to make some plays on offense, and that'll kind of keep them interesting. But like if you look at, let's say, like that USC game, yes, it was a blowout and it became a blowout, but that turnovers really kind of killed Stanford in that game.
They were moving the ball. They were really moving the ball. And to be clear though, like they did bring out the slow mesh for that game.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like anytime you bring out something that a defense has never seen, it's going to be it's going to cause a problem for them. And
they ran it more in that game than that at least that I noticed than against like Oregon State.
Yeah.
You know? So it's the other thing is that if your line is banged up and you maybe don't want to run that slow mesh as much because you might just get like destroyed, right? Like you might get bullied. And so that could be something.
All right. CFB Hertz is putting his mortgage on Notre Dame to cover 17. So that's good. Due to advice from Jamie Uyeyama of IrishSportsDaily.com.
I mean, it's not my money.
That's a fact.
But I mean, they could have a backdoor cover situation, but I mean, I'm picking them to win by 24. So
yeah, I'm picking them to win by I'm picking them to win by 20. I've got 41-21 on the docket. The only thing I could see, and you mentioned a tough, like kind of a close game at halftime. I think the getting into third downs too much is real. It's different when you're playing BYU and it's like, hey, you're clued in. It's like, okay, we're in third down. Gotta stay in third down, right? We got to execute here. I'm ready to go. I'm locked in. We're going to execute. We're going to go get it, right? It's different when you're playing a BYU team than when you're playing Stanford. It's like, oh man, it's 3rd and 4. If we don't execute this, then we got to punt, and then we got to punt, and then we got to score points. Like that's I kind of feel like that's how it went against like Marshall, where it's like you get these kind of gimme third downs, but you don't execute them, and it's like you keep punting, and it's like, man, we don't have any points yet. We should be scoring points, and then Marshall scores, and it's like, fuck, now we're losing, and so. It's just kind of like that's where the and then the crowd starts to make that noise that they always make. Where
And I think too, because the one thing that they have done on defense this year, and on offense too, they've been pretty good in the red zone.
Yeah.
So like that is something that like, if they're take advantage of their opportunities, then I mean that is something that can make the game a lot closer than it could. So like I mean, it happens all the time where ND or anybody has a dominant first quarter, but they're up 6-0, and then you give up one big play and you're down 7-6.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like that happens, right? So I should add this though. Stanford 123rd in red zone possessions on offense, tied with Navy.
So if they get there, be worried.
But only Power 5 teams below them, Colorado and Iowa.
Did you say what's the Navy one again? Worse than Navy?
Tied with Navy.
Tied with Navy. Again, the troops. We gotta keep them out of the red zone.
Don't let them in the red zone.
Don't let them in the red zone. We respect the troops in Notre Dame. Irish Sports Daily Hit and Hustle podcast. We respect the troops. Don't let them in the red zone. So what is it? Don't let them in the red zone. No negative plays.
No negative
and
plays.
That's how we bump them down.
Keep bumping them down the list.
We stay respecting the troops at IrishSportsDaily.com. All right, I'm gonna just keep checking here, see if there's anything that Marcus Freeman says. Howard Cross. Let's talk about Howard Cross. Expected to play against Stanford, limited in practice on Tuesday. This is from Pete Sampson saying this. practice in full on Wednesday. Tariq Bracy, hamstring questionable. Jaden Mickey and Ramon Henderson will be the nickels if there's no Bracy. So there it is. We talked about Mickey. We talked about Henderson. That's what it's going to be. What do you think about Howard Cross? Expected to play. Do you think that's expected to play but not start? Expected to be dressed? What do you think?
I mean, I think if he plays, he'll start.
Okay.
But especially but maybe not have as heavy a workload as he's had early in the year, like where you see like Chris Smith probably play more. Maybe Rubio get a little bit more snaps. I think ideally is you just wanted him to get out of if he plays, to get him out of the game healthy, right? And get him out of the game healthy, and then just kind of go from there. But I think they missed him a lot against BYU. So I mean, I think it would be
they definitely did. Factually correct on that. Did not practice. So let's see. Howard Cross, more color, did not practice on Tuesday. This is from, I think, Matt, who's there. Did not practice Tuesday, practiced Wednesday. So then probably practiced again Thursday. And that's usually
it's pretty normal.
A good sign. Yeah,
that's pretty. A good sign. It's pretty normal too. Like if especially if you're coming back from ankle, like why would you? He doesn't need to. They don't need him to be in there for every rep when he doesn't need a ton of reps in practice to be ready.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I think those are going to be the updates. I think we're going to call it. Jamie's got a 24-point victory for Notre Dame. Jamie's got a 24-pointer. I have a 20-pointer. You're going to want to check out everyone else's predictions on irisportsdaily.com that will come out tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We're going to be back, of course, for the post-game show right after the Stanford game with me, Jamie, and Mike. I will be doing my morning after show. That is always on at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, 6:30 Pacific time, talking about the game, talking about absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thank you for always asking good questions and being a good contributor. So we really appreciate that. So I'll be around on Sunday morning, and then we'll be right back next week doing the Tuesday, Thursday thing, Power Hour on Monday, all the write-ups and all those things on irisportsdaily.com. You're going to want to check those out. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If this is your first time, or if we haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. We want to get the show out to more people. Rajon, see you Saturday and Sunday. Absolutely. And we will talk to you guys after the game on Saturday.